Book of Heaven, Volume 29, Part 11. July 13th, 1931. Motion is a sign of life. The passport in order to enter into the kingdom of the divine will. The language and the citizen of it. The peacemaker between God and the creatures. I was continuing my acts in the divine will, and was thinking to myself, how can one know whether the divine fiat reigns in the creature and in my poor soul, or the good that it reigns in it, or not? But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus told me, motion is the sign of life. Where there is no motion, there cannot be life. So to know whether the creature possesses my will is if, in her inmost soul, she feels my will alone as prime motion of everything that goes on within her. In fact, my will being prime motion, wherever it reigns, it will make its prime divine motion felt, upon which will hang all the internal and external acts, as though from the centre of the prime motion of my divine will. Therefore, it will be the prime motion, the password, the commandant, the ruler, in such a way that each act will be in waiting to receive the prime motion in order to move and operate. So, if the creature feels in her acts the prime motion of my will, it is the sign that it reigns in her soul. But if, on the contrary, she feels in her prime motion the human end, her own pleasure, natural satisfactions, the taste for pleasing creatures, my will shall not only not reign, but from Queen it will act as her servant, serving her in her acts, because there is no act that the creature can do if my divine will does not concur in it, either dominating her or serving her. Now you must know, my daughter, that the passport, in order to enter into the kingdom, is the resolute will of never doing one's own will, even at the cost of one's life and any sacrifice. This resolute act, but true, is like the signature that one puts on the passport in order to set off in the kingdom of my divine will. And while the creature signs in order to set off, God signs in order to receive her. This latter signature will have so much value that the whole of heaven will go to meet her in order to receive her into the kingdom of the divine fiat in which they live. And they will be all eyes over this creature, who from the earth holds as life and as kingdom that same will which they hold in heaven. But the passport is not enough. One must study the language, the ways, the customs of this divine kingdom. And these are the knowledges, the prerogatives, the beauties, the value that my will contains. Otherwise, one would be like a stranger. He would neither take love nor be loved. If he does not sacrifice in making of it a study in order to be able to speak with that same language, and does not adapt himself to the customs of those who live in this kingdom so holy, he will live isolated, because, not understanding him, they shall shun him. And isolation makes no one happy. In addition to this, one must pass from the study to the practice of what was learned, and after a length of practice, at last, he is declared a citizen of the kingdom of my divine will, and then shall he enjoy all the happinesses which are in a kingdom so holy. Even more, they shall be his own properties, and he shall acquire the right to live in it as in his own fatherland. After this he added, my daughter, one who lives in my will, becomes the peacemaker between God and the creatures. All of her acts, words, steps, her prayers, her little sacrifices, are like many bonds of peace between heaven and earth. They are like peacemaking weapons, as she fights her Creator with weapons of peace and of love, in order to disarm him, and render him favorable, and change the scourges into mercy. And just as the human will formed the war, to wage war against the one who had created it, not only this, but it broke the accord, the order, and the peace, so my will, with the strength of its omnipotence reigning in the creature, converts what the creature does into bonds of accord, of order, of peace, and of love. So from her comes out as though a little white cloud, which surging spreads and rises up to the divine throne, and bursting into as many voices for as many acts as she has done, it says, great God, peace I bring to you from the earth, and you give me your peace, to bring it as bond of peace between you and the human generation. This little cloud ascends and descends, descends and ascends, and does the office of peacemaker between heaven and earth. Fiat. July 17th, 1931. Beneficial reign. Continuous creation of the divine will. Internal and external order of it. The creature is carried in its arms. I was feeling all immersed in the Fiat. Its air is so sweet, refreshing, that one feels oneself being reborn at each instant to new life. But what does one breathe in this air of the divine will? One breathes air of light, of love, of sweetness, of fortitude, of divine knowledges, and so forth, in such a way as to feel oneself renewed to new life. This beneficial and balsamic air, as it is breathed, makes the divine life grow in the creature. And just as when one breathes the air, with the breath it is enclosed inside, and by repeating the breath it is put outside, because the strength of the air is so great that one can keep inside only as much as is necessary in order to live. The surplus must be put out with the same breath. But what does one put out? That which she has received after she has filled herself. Love, light, goodness she has breathed in. Love, light, goodness she gives back. But while my poor mind wandered in this divine air, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, all the good acts that the creature does in my divine will rise to God, because it has the divine power to draw up into the celestial fatherland that which is done in its volition. And then, with its same power, it makes them fall back like beneficial rain over the same creature, in such a way that if the creature loves, blesses, adores, thanks, praises, God requites her with new rain of love, of blessings, rain of thanksgivings, because he felt himself being loved and thanked by the creature, and bursting into rain of praises, he praises her before the whole celestial court. Oh, how our divine goodness awaits the adoration, the pleasant I love you of the creature, to be able to give to our love the vent of being able to say to her, "Daughter, I love you." Therefore, there is not one act that the creature does for us, for which our tenderness, all paternal, does not give to her multiplied requital. Then I continued my acts in the divine Fiat, and my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, the creature is carried in the arms of my divine will, and its love is so great that it keeps all creation around her, as if in act it were always, always creating it, to give her pleasure and render her happy, and say to her, my creative strength maintains all this machine of the universe. If it withdrew, the sun would disappear as if by magic. The heavens and all the other things would resolve into nothing, just as from nothing they came out. So my creative power keeps on creating it continuously, and can say in all reality, 'It is precisely for you that I am creating the sun, so that your life, your journey, may be strewn with light. For you, the azure heavens, so that your eye may wander afar and delight in their extension. I am creating everything for you. I maintain everything in order because I love you. My divine will makes itself life in act of all things. It sustains them and preserves them. It places them around the creature to make her feel, from all things and from all sides, its unmovable life, its immutable strength, its invincible love. It can be said that it clasps her everywhere as triumph of its love, and it maintains not only the external order and all things in act, as if it were creating them, but it maintains internally with its creative strength, the whole internal order of the creature. So it is always an act of creating the heartbeat, the breath, the motion, the blood circulation, the intelligence, the memory, the will. It runs as life in the heartbeat, in the breath, in everything. It sustains and preserves, without ever withdrawing from the soul and from the body. Yet this supreme will of mine is everything, does everything, and is not recognized, but rather forgotten. It could say, as I said to the apostles, I have been with you for so long, and you still do not know me? Many things are made known, which do not form the life of the creature, and of my will, which forms the life and is continuous act of life. Otherwise she could not live. Nothing is made known. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. Recognize it in you and outside of you, in everything, more than your own life, and you will feel admirable things. Its continuous act that loves you with untiring love, and only because it loves you, it gives you life. Fiat. July 23rd, 1931. Fecundity of light. The creation, feast of God and of the creature. The divine will, regime and rule. I am back in the arms of the divine fiat. It seems to me that its immense light flows like sea around me. And as I do my acts of love, of adoration, of thanksgiving, I take from within this light the love that the divine will possesses. However, I take of it as much as I can take, because as creature it is not given to me to take it all, so immense it is, and I have neither the capacity nor the space in which to enclose this interminable love. But still I fill myself completely, in such a way that, though I am creature, my love toward the one who created me is full and whole, and so is my adoration. In fact, the acts done in the divine will must possess such fullness that the creature must be able to say, my being has melted completely into love, into adoration. I have nothing left. And the Creator must be able to say, all the love that she could give me, she gave to me. She has kept nothing for herself. But as I was doing my little acts in this sea, little waves were forming, which, unloading themselves into my intelligence, changed into light of knowledge on the divine will. And my always lovable Jesus told me, my daughter, one who lives in my divine will is always dealing with light, never with darkness. And since light is fecund, it gives birth in the soul to the truths it possesses. The virtue of light is marvelous and miraculous, and while by looking at it one sees nothing but light, inside it possesses the fullness of goods. But it communicates these goods not to one who only looks at it, but to one who lets himself be touched, molded, clasped, kissed with its ardent kisses. As it touches, it purifies. As it molds, it transforms. As it clasps, so it encloses its light in the soul. And with its fecundity, which can never remain idle, its work is incessant. It communicates the beautiful iris of the divine colors and beauties. And with its kisses, it infuses the most beautiful truths and the ineffable secrets of its Creator. Living in the light of my divine will, and not being aware of the divine things, of our secrets, not feeling the fecundating virtue of this light, would be as if God wanted to live separate life from his creature. But the one purpose for which we want our will to be also that of the creature was precisely that we want to live life together and permanent with her. So it would be absurd, living in my will and not feeling the fecundity of its goods that this light possesses, which is that of making the creature live of God himself. Then he added, "My daughter, here is why in creation there were so many preparations, as preparatory to one of the greatest solemn feasts, which our divinity wanted to solemnize with the creature from the very beginning of her existence. What did we not prepare so that this feast might be one of the most solemn? Heavens studded with stars, sun radiant with light, refreshing winds, seas, enchanting flowerings and fruits with the variety of so many flavors and sweetnesses. After having prepared everything, we created man, that he might celebrate, and we together with him. It was right that the owner of the feast, who had prepared it with so much love, would be present and enjoy together. More so, since the substance of a feast is formed by the company of the guests that are wanted at the feast. And so that this feast between us and man might never be interrupted, we gave him our very will, which ruled our divine being, so that one might be the regime and the rule between God and the creature. So, as man withdrew from our will, he lost our regime and our rule, and we stopped celebrating on both sides. So, as you do your acts in it, and you remind us of everything that we did in creation to set up our feast for the creature, we feel that our fiat is your regime and your rule. This binds us and clasps us again, and forms for us the new feast, and makes us repeat that of creation. And I, my beloved Jesus, however more I want to live in your will and die, rather than not do your most holy will, yet I feel myself bad, dirty. How can I repeat for you this feast? And Jesus continued, our love for one who is determined to live in it and do it always is so great that it makes itself brush of light, and painting with its touch of light and heat, it purifies the creature of any stain, that she may not be ashamed of our adorable presence, and it places her with all trust and love to celebrate together with us. Therefore, let yourself be touched up by my divine will, even at the cost of suffering any pain, and it will take care of everything. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 29, Part 11. Fiat.